This is Arc 1, Chapter 1 of When Realms Bind.
So they all showed up, the last two being Garkez Rupe and Trader's first mate, because they were the last ones to get beamed. They apprehend Trader's first mate pretty quick, and Regnum, Botboy, Rapper Chewy, Pine Tree Crossfire, Liberian, Sharper Arat, and Garkez all go and interrogate Trader's first mate. They have weapons on them to make sure he will not escape. Trader's first mate is trying to explain that he is a good guy, but they all don't want just to trust him immediately. Everyone else is waiting outside. This includes Captain HD, the pilot, Mexican Coke, Dominic Butler, Avum, Durecci, Curb, Magenta, King Akbar, and Link. They're all just waiting around. Suddenly, someone comes out of nowhere. King Akbar apprehends him pretty quick, though, and he kills him. At this point, they're all kind of apprehensive. In particular, Captain HD. I don't know what's happening. This isn't super hot. They're all looking around trying to figure out where this guy came from, because they're all assuming that there are probably others with him. Captain HD doesn't really want to disrupt the interrogation, because if they do, Trader's first mate might use the interruption as a chance to escape. He also thinks the team he is with can defeat anyone else without their help, so Captain HD is more along the lines of, alright, we can handle this ourselves. Everyone else is kind of on board, and so they don't immediately call all of the others to come help. All of a sudden, the Warrior of the East comes, knocking Avum. He now thinks it is likely that he is dead, Avum, because he knew that the Warrior of the East died. He watched him die, and so he's wondering, why are you back? Immediately upon arriving, the Warrior of the East knocks Captain HD and King Akbar to the floor, ensuring they are unconscious. Everyone then enters the fight. Mexican Co grabs an axe from the assailant King Akbar killed and starts running towards him while Avum runs with Mexican Coke. They both get knocked to the side by the Warrior of the East. The Pied and Durecci fire at the Warrior of the East for a little bit, but that doesn't go too well either because the Warrior of the East forces them back with his mind. Pilot gets carried by Curb soon after, though, and starts firing from the sky. They also get forced to the floor. Magenta grabs a gun, but she is knocked out too, along with Dominic Butler and Link. They're almost all down for the count. Suddenly, the Warrior of the East starts chokeholding Captain HD with his mind. He tried to go after the Warrior of the East earlier, and may now be his first official victim. And this whole takedown of the boys and girls happened in about 1 minute.
The commotion already reached the ears of the interrogators pretty quick, and so they are on their way. They are convinced that the Warrior of the South, Trader's first mate, is a good guy, and so he grabs Garkez's red lightsaber, the one that Garkez stole from Trader's first mate earlier. He, faster than the rest of them, is the first one in the battle, and he fights the Warrior of the East. The reason why this is a big deal is because the Warrior of the East and the Warrior of the South are bitter enemies, and the Warrior of the South, Trader's first mate, ended up beating the Warrior of the East for power long ago. Therefore, this is personal for both. As a reminder of the lore behind these characters, the more that they, the types, disobey what they were called to do by the High King, the stronger they get, and that is the Warrior's Curse. Because Trader's first mate is fighting for King Regnum now, he starts to lose some power because King Regnum inherited the place of the High King. The Warrior of the East, because he is fighting against Regnum, starts to gain more power. The Warrior of the South has to choose whether to fight for the king and start to lose power, or stop fighting and turn against the king to gain power and do what he's not supposed to do and what is against his purpose. So they continue their fight. The Warrior of the South continues to fight for the king, but is being tempted by the Warrior of the East. Turn and then rule everyone on this planet, including me. No, I'm not going to do it. The Warrior of the East grows in power and eventually takes down the Warrior of the South. He flings his body into Garkez, who was just entering the battle. Then he chokeholds the Warrior of the South in the sky. All of a sudden, King Regnum comes. Because King Regnum is a good king now, he's able to channel much of the sword's power. The sword that he has is passed down by the kings and created through ancient and mysterious techniques, and so it has a lot of power. The king called these types and ruled them by the sword. He plans to enact justice on the traitorous Warrior of the East. He's confident enough in his position right now that he could take out pretty much anyone. King Regnum is learning to channel this confidence in a way that he didn't have before, which is partly what caused all of the problems in the first place. So, when he enters the battle, He actually does a good number on the Warrior of the East. The Warrior of the East recognizes that he is not going to beat King Regnum, and so he flies away. But King Akbar follows him because he's really riled up after he saw what Warrior of the East did to the Warrior of the South and all of his teammates. The Warrior of the East takes him on pretty easily, though, and sends him down a huge chasm. As he's falling, he's trying with his seedy chain to grab onto something, but the blade keeps going through stuff. So he actually grabs the lightsaber part with his hand, and the chain grabs hold of the stone. The stone allows King Akbar to lose some of the momentum that he had gained because of going down so fast into the chasm. So he smacks a rock sort of hard and loses his hand, since he held onto the lightsaber for part of a second. He is either knocked out or dead. Everyone thought he died, though, so they're all sad. The fans are left in suspense, and no one knows the fate of King Akbar. The Warrior of the South, however, is mortally wounded. He got damaged too hard by the Warrior of the East. Now, the Warrior of the South is dying. There is not much that they can do to save him. Captain HD feels bad for not calling out immediately, which might have allowed more people to help defeat the Warrior of the East. It was obvious, though, that their strength did not match up with the Warrior of the East. It appears that King Regnum is the only one who can defeat him. King Regnum feels bad since he didn't come in quick enough, and everyone else is a little messed up too. They did, however, hold their own, and they now know, including King Regnum, that King Regnum has a lot of power. They have to deal with a few things, though. Traitor's first mate is now Honorist first mate because he died honorably. And now they have to figure out what to do now that they're in this place. They may have to go find some of the people that came back from the second death to figure out who's good and who's bad, because it is likely that the Warrior of the East is alive now because of the release of those in the second death. The Warrior of the East now knows he can be defeated by King Regnum, which is a big deal. After Traitor's first mate died and the Warrior of the East flew away, King Regnum, because he knows the area very well since he now realizes that he's back in his kingdom and it's not just a coincidence, says, "Okay, we should probably go to my castle. It may be true that he and my friends returned from the second death, but we should probably check it out anyways. There's also an outpost on the way. Let's stop by that outpost, because if anybody wasn't at my kingdom, they'd probably be at an outpost because it's capable of being defended well." The rest of the group goes, "Oh, okay." There's also a bit of controversy because the king says, "Look, you guys don't have to follow me on this journey. It means a lot to me, but you guys can go off and do your own thing. It might even be better to separate, because then it would be a small group with me, Liberian, Avum, and Sharper Arat." The boys and girls characters say, No, we'll come after you. We'll come with you. We'll make this journey. We don't mind being under your rule. You're a good king, and we don't really have anything else better to do. Why don't we just follow along, and hopefully we can help you." So they travel to the outpost, and when they get there, they're looking around, trying to figure out if there is anything around, and Derechi says, "Does the Warrior of the East know where the outpost is?" Ooh, maybe this isn't the best place to be. They turn to leave, but the Warrior of the East comes. He's going to attack them again, but in a more stealthy way. He goes down and then hits them, and then flies back up. He only manages to hit a couple people, though. Sharper Arat and Rapper Chewy, since he only goes down twice before Curb goes in and gives him a good kick. He knocks out Curb pretty hard, and so she's now hurt. Captain HG and Garkez, because they can fly, start chasing down the Warrior of the East. They get some good hits in, while Garkez and the Warrior of the East are fighting in the sky. Captain HG then goes down and grabs King Regnum, who can't fly, but who has the sword. He brings King Regnum into the battle by carrying him in the air and sending him flying at the Warrior of the East for a few swings with his sword before catching him again in midair. After a couple of swings, King Regnum gets a really good hit, knocking the Warrior of the East staff out of his hand. This causes the Warrior of the East to lose a lot of his power, because his staff is what helps channel much of his power. He falls, and now the boys and girls are closing in on him. King Regnum says, "Let's kill him." He raises his sword and says, "For the murder of the Warrior of the South, and for our continued desire to kill and be evil, and because we have little power to restrain you, you will be executed by I, King Regnum of the Western Isles." King Regnum raises his sword as the Warrior of the East cackles, "There's not a kingdom, you fool!" King Regnum then pauses for a second, moments before he gets blasted by something in his back. He falls into the Warrior of the East's arms. He lets go of Regnum, who falls onto his back, breathes his last breath, and dies. Captain HD and Garkaz Larupe, who were on his left and right, first think it was the Warrior of the East who killed Regnum. Captain HD gets 3 shots at the Warrior of the East. All of them are direct hits, so the Warrior of the East stumbles back a little bit before falling onto the floor. Garkaz then cuts into his chest with his lightsaber. He cries in pain. Captain HD then turns to find Liberian with the Warrior of the East's staff. It then clicks in HD's brain. Liberian shot Regnum. Some of the boys already knew this, like Rapper Chewie, Alpham Dearo, and Pytrine Crossfire, so they are quickly moving to apprehend and disarm him. Liberian sends more blasts their way before getting tackled. Captain HD gets knocked back by one of the blasts and it hits the floor in front of him. Sharper Era then gets a really good shot on Liberian and hits him in the thigh, but Liberian, still being held by the 2 boys, blasts Sharper Era in the shoulder. Liberian breaks from his captors and begins to fight Garkaz while everyone else tries to get a good shot at Liberian. Garkaz is dodging, and Liberian is kind of dodging too, since now he has some of the Warrior of the East abilities, since he has the staff. He then grabs King Regnum's sword. It should be noted that the sword doesn't work like the staff, since you have to be a king. So Liberian, who knows that, is mostly just using the staff and then protecting the sword. The battle continues as bullets zip past Garkaz and Liberian as they make their way, still engaged in a battle to the death, up towards the top of a cliff. Once they reach the top, Garkaz attacks a few more times and then ducks. Captain HD then gets 2 hits on Liberian right before Garkaz bends one knee and kicks Liberian off the cliff, thinking he can't fly. Liberian, with the power of the staff, just flies away, leaving Garkaz in shock. Garkaz pauses and realizes that he could chase after Liberian, but instead stays with the group so that he does not suffer the same fate as King Akbar. The rest of the group thanks him for his restraint, knowing that Garkaz's departure would have meant having only one king left, which would be Captain HD. They then turn to the Warrior of the East, who is dying. They ask what is going on and how he is still alive. He answers them. We were all dead, waiting. Suddenly, life was opened up to us again. We did not know why. He looks at Sharper Era. We're all back, whispers the Warrior of the East. Everyone. The Warrior of the East then claims he was the most powerful of them all. Before explaining who from all the returners are good and bad, alive or freshly dead, the Warrior of the East dies. After burying Regnum and the Warrior of the East, Avum and Sharper begin to lead the survivors towards the castle, because they know the way. That is the end of Chapter 1